Okay. So sagt the Heilige Gemara, what's the new Mishnah? The new Mishnah. So today is the yahrzeit of a Heilige Yid. His name was Reb Kalevsky. Oh yeah, I should mention his name and his father's name, Gestav Design. So today is the yahrzeit of Reb Kalevsky. Today's the 30th of Kislev. Reb Kalevsky was a Rebbe. He was my Rebbe's Rebbe. I have a Rebbe, Yitzchak Perman. His name is Reb Yaakov Moshe. I don't know what his father's name was. Reb Yaakov Moshe Kalevsky was a Kulevsky, K-U-L. I don't know how it's spelled in Russian Kodesh. He was the Rosh Yeshiva in Baltimore after Rabbi Weinberg, but Rabbi Ruderman Zatzal hired him as a Rebbe. And my Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Perman, was a lady in Sonset, who has a son that lives here in Toronto, who's a Shalomeshiv and a Masifta, Ari Perman. So this Rabbi Yitzchak Perman was a Talmud of Rabbi Kalevsky, and he would always tell us about the wonderful Rabbi Kalevsky, what a beautiful shir he gave. He used to always talk about his Rebbe, Rabbi Kalevsky. So when we were in Yeshiva, whenever Rachman Gadol died, so the whole Yeshiva would go to Levaya. So for us, it was the most exciting day, because it was like a field trip for us. We'd all get along on the buses, we'd have a trip, and then we would go somewhere to meet all our friends, because all the yeshivas came to Levaya. It was the most fun. Agavocha, Agudos Avek. But the Master, so I remember we were in Baltimore from Ruderman's Levaya, and it was like the first school trip I ever went on in Philadelphia. No one went to Umgestring, and then we had a school trip. It was a Machaya. And Rav Kalevsky was master. And I heard so much about Rav Kalevsky from my Rebbe, so of course I was listening very carefully. So he asked a beautiful kasha, and my son told me, being that I fell asleep during the drasha that Rav said yesterday about Shel Shudas, my son told me that it could be Rabbi Lowy said this when he spoke yesterday. Rav Kalevsky said, when I first got hired as a Rebbe in Yisrael, it took so much time and such a large part of my day to prepare this year, I couldn't learn anything on my own. So I felt like I wasn't steiging, and it was bothering me. So I went to my boss. I went to Rav Ruderman, and I said, I have a problem. I feel like my whole growth in Yiddishkeit has been stopped, because my whole life, all I do all day is prepare shir. Once you have a couple of cycles under your belt, it's a little easier. But he was at the beginning. So Rabbi Weinberg, it's not Rabbi Weinberg. So Rabbi Ruderman Zatzal told him as follows. He says in the Hakdama to the Sefer HaFlah, the Haflah writes, Im doime rabach kemalach Hashem tzavokos oz yivakesh Torah mepilu. If your Rebbe is like a malach, then you should learn Torah from him. What does you mean the Rebbe is a malach? We know that a malach gets one job, only one job, right? And that's what he does. He doesn't have multiple. The malachim don't multitask; they do one job. So Rav Ruderman said, no problem. That's a gevalta gezach. You kemalach Hashem tzavokos. You're taka good Rebbe oz yivakesh Torah mepilu. That's what I remember from a Ruderman's Levaya.
Once told me, I learned the whole day.
Okay, Zog the Heilige Mishnah. It's Chuzah Yogan Aleinu, Val Kol Yisrael. Zog the Heilige Gemara. Ein Bein Hamuder Hanoah Mechavere Lemuder Mimeni Machal. So the Gemara is now going to compare and contrast. If someone says, I may not have hanoah from you, or someone says, I may not have any hanoah from you related to eating, really they're one and the same. Why is that? Because any hanoah that I would have from you ultimately will translate into eating. Because if I have any hanoah from you that's of any value, I can take that money and buy food with it. So where is there a difference between making a total Isra hanoah to have from your friend versus only saying you will not have hanoah of eating from him? The only difference will be a ladrisas haregel. That means if you have a property and I want to walk through it, if I walk through your property, I'm having hanoah from you, so I wouldn't be allowed to. But if it's hanoah Michael, normally when I walk through someone's property, you wouldn't charge me for that. So even though I'm benefiting from you, but I'm not benefiting from you anything that could be related to Michael, because there's no cash value in what I'm having enough of you.
If it saves me time and I wouldn't be able to,
so you're asking me a very good question. We're going to see here that it's you need l'chalapachas that it's a service that would charge for, even if you benefit from it. Okay, so that's one thing. And the kalim shein oisin b'moichel nefesh. If I borrow something from you, and it's again something the Gemara can explain, it's something that I normally wouldn't charge you to rent. If you're going to borrow something from me that I normally would rent, like a car, well, that's sure having a value. But what if it's kalim that I would normally not charge for? A, and B is it's kalim that you can't use to prepare food, right? It's a rake to rake your leaves. No one's using a rake in the preparation of their food. If you would borrow from me a pot, that would be a problem because I'm giving you the hanoah food, even though I normally wouldn't charge for it. So the kalim she'ein oisim b'hem oichel nefesh. Hamuder meichel mechaver. If someone is mudar that he's not allowed to have hanoah food from his friend, lo yashilenu, you shouldn't borrow from him kalim that can be used in preparation of food, even though you normally wouldn't charge for such use. Napa, a sifter, the kivra, this also not a sifter, these are all sifters to sift the flour with.
If I make the other person.
If I say I will not have enough from you, well, it doesn't really matter. But this is Hamuda no mechaber means I'm not allowed to have enough from you.
So
but it would work the opposite way as well.
The other person can.
If I said I can't have enough from you, then this would be the chiluk. If I said you can't have enough from me, it would be the same chiluk. It's just a question who's who. V'rechayim, or a little mill, the tanner, and an oven. Avol mashal loy chaluk, you can lend him your jacket, v'tabas, or your ring, v'talis, your clothing, unizomim, and nose rings, because these are things that you normally wouldn't charge for. Okay, let's see the Ran, who will elaborate on it. This is also going to bring us back. The sugya here today will bring us back to a Mishnah that we had in Ksubas. So it'll involve a built-in chazar. So let's see the Heilig Ran. Ein bein hamudar hano el adrisis harega. Shahamudar hano, somebody who's mudar from hano, osir lavor derech chatzera. If I say you may not have enough from me, or if I say I may not have enough from you, it doesn't make a difference. But if I say you may not have enough from me, then you may not walk through my yard. You know how to take my yard as a shortcut. But if there's only an issue for me to have food benefit from you, walking through my chutzner would have no food benefit. You're allowed to use my kalim that cannot be used for food if you're only answering hano of eating from me. But one caveat is it has to be use of kalim that normally you wouldn't pay for. Kidam Afarish also, like the Gemara is going to explain. But if I'm answering any type of hano from you, well, then I'm not allowed to benefit from you at all, even borrowing kalim that normally wouldn't be charged for. Lo yashivenu napa, the kivra, v'chayim v'taner. If someone has an art scroll, could someone tell me that a kivra is a sifter and a napa is a sifter?
It's a bigger hole.
So which one has smaller holes? Napa or the kivra?
Not like the flower seed.
Right?
And flower is a grain seed.
So a grain seed probably has bigger holes than a flower seed. Okay. The reason why the Mishnah mentions these items, don't make a mistake. That kalim that you could use in the preparation of food, those are also to someone who says, I won't have enough food from you. Maybe you might think that nami b'mudim it would also be mutter. Why? Because what type of kalim of food preparation are also things that are used in the final stage of the preparation, right before you're going to eat it. That's called having enough food. These items are used in the earlier stages of the preparation. So since they're used in the earlier stages of the preparation, maybe that's not called hanos michael, and therefore v'lishrei v'muder michael. Maybe they'll be muder. Kamash malon, that even kalim that aren't used in the immediate preparation of food, rather it's only used in the earlier stages. That's also going to be usher. So there's a shaila how far back it goes. Does it go back to a plow or other things that are used to plant? Right? The Mishnah only lists things that goes as far back as sifting.
No,
Does it go further back?
Telling mamish by the last stage, but it's not touching food maybe. It's not.
That's right. It's still one stage. Like, how about a challah? Can I use your challah? That's also used in the preparation of food. So there's a shayla how far back we consider it hanos machal. Avo mashila chaluk vitalis unizavim v'tavois. The Gemara shakli v'tari. The Gemara is going to analyze this. Yashmi'in Rabusa Bani. There's a special chiddush about these particular items, or they're just any items that don't have shaykhs to food. Oiloi. Elo the teninu agav ratio. Or maybe it's just giving examples of things that you're allowed to borrow, but there's nothing unique about these items that the Tana has a chiddush to express. Zok Tehel Gemara. And Dan Tana, who is the Tana of our Mishnah? Who is the Tana of our Mishnah who says that even though it's something that I wouldn't charge for, it's still usher, right? We said if walking through my chutzner, Teresa Regal, right? That's something that if it's Hanos Michael, of course, since I don't charge for it, there's no way that could somehow translate into food. But if I say you shouldn't have any enough from me, then you're not allowed to walk through my chutzner. I wouldn't charge for it. There's no value to it. So Montana, that's something that has no value. Even if I don't charge for it, it's still also if I say you may not have any enough from me. This would follow the sheet of Rabbi Eliezer. The Tanya Rabbi Eliezer Omer afilu vitur aser b'mudar ano. Even something that you normally wouldn't charge for, so you might think that's not called you benefiting from me because I would never charge for the use of such a product or such a service or such a benefit. Nevertheless, if you say I will not have any ano from somebody, you're not even allowed to have that type of ano. That's so trivial that normally people are not good on it. And why that vitur is mutter is a little bit of a question in the Rishonim. So let's see what the Ran says. Afilu vitur, mashadarkin shel moichem levater leloichem. Even things that the seller would throw in for free. Shemasifin lahem kishaloichem payers echad. Whenever a moicher sells something, it's called like a baker's dozen. You usually throw in a little extra. There, that's something that even if you're also banot to me, that's just not called anot. I apologize. We're saying such vitor according to Revelation would be also. The avagav davizvina de rami alape. Even if it's dead merchandise, and throwing in some extra, that's considered hano, and Rabbi Eliezer would hold that would be also. That explains why in our Mishnah Drisha is a regular also. Even for someone to walk through my property, that's also also. Avagav lekapti ba'inchi. Even though normally people are in makbid that someone should walk through his property. Nevertheless, also b'mudur hanoho. If you tell somebody you may not have enough from me, he may not walk through your property. Al Rabbanon, the pligi alei, the Rabbanon who argue on Rabbi Eliezer, and those viters mutter sorry to kolecha the loy aser alov. Ela hana asoi. If you only asked your hana, the vav changes the gears a little bit. The vav changes it to the chassav. The cholech leaser olav the chassav elanotik hagavna loy mikri hana. This is not called hana. The kibun the midi the loy kapti ba inshihu, since it's something that nobody's makbid on. Ein zen nikari nehena mechaveri. That's not called nehena mechaveri. There are others who learn differently. There are others who learn that since it's something that someone's not makbid on, when I said you should be usher to have enough from me, I never included such a thing. But really, it is called enough.
That in our brain that makes more sense.
I hear. Vim timer. The hacha mashma. Here it's mashma. The bedrises harega like kapti inchi. Mishumachi show rabbanon. From our Gemara, it's mashma quite clearly that walking through someone's property is not considered a tangible benefit.
Right.
The problem is in Toronto also. In Per Cheskas Abatim, Aminon we say, in Cheskas Abatim we're discussing what type of things aren't considered your expression of ownership of a property. Aminon the Gemara said, and the Gemara was discussing if going into someone else's property, is that called an exertion, an expression of your ownership? And the Gemara said, by a chotah shel shutfin, if someone's standing in that property, that's not called showing ownership. The amada kedi loy kapti. Shutfin aren't makbid on each other if someone stands there. So therefore, by me standing in my shutter's property, it doesn't prove that I own the property. Because even if I didn't own it, my shutter wouldn't have a problem with it. But what you see from the Gemara is Almadafka Shutin who the Loy Kapti. You see, if you're my shutter, I don't have a problem if you go through my property. But I'll injure the Alma Kapti.
My private property.
Everybody else,
or shit's
private property. I'll injure the Alma Kapti. You see that from a stranger, I would be makri. V'chivin shekain litzar fidel rabbanon. Why do we say according to rabbanon drishas or regel isn't something that someone will be makbid on? In Bava Basra, we clearly see that unless you're my shutter, of course I would be makbid on it. Here to Rambanzal, the Hamada, the Amar Hassam, what we're referring to there is not merely casually walking through my field. What it means there is Hanulis Akev V'Leishev V'Choter. That's someone who's parked there temporarily. He goes and takes a break there. Dumya the Hamadus Behema, similar to when you're taking your behema there to rest, then Hasan of Nasisa. So that's a much more exertion of ownership that you normally would never allow a stranger to sit and park on your front lawn. You know, if a stranger walks through your property, it's one thing. But if he parks there and he sits down and takes a smoke break there, you go, pal, move out, move on. All right? So staying in one place and remaining on your property, that's where you would only allow a shutuf, but not a total stranger. Means just to walk through. I know my house is a thoroughfare. Even though I am kapti, it doesn't help. I can scream as much as I want, but the kids are always running through with their bikes and their toys and their zaken. From breakers to sultana, right? There, nobody's makbid. That's why it's mutter. So what is the halacha? Is it mutter to go through someone's property if it's asur bano? Pasuk manzal krab Eliezer, damerviter asur. If you're not allowed to have enough from somebody, you're not allowed to walk through his property. Because our Tana seems to say, like our Gemara says, is follow the shit of Rabbi Eliezer. The Parish of Shutim Shenodru Kabasei Asla. And we're going to see in the later parak, the Gemara also seems to be passed from the Rabbi Eliezer. Avol rach al kosav v'perich cheskos abatim kabe elu dvorim she'elam chazaka v'lech silchzu Rabbi Eliezer v'chein das Rabbi Tamsal. So in fact, it's a machlokes if these things will be also. There's actually a shaila. If you have an Isra no on something, is it also for you to, let's say you have an Isra no, are you allowed to have a no from something that's also a no, shaloi keder chanasa? You're not eating it, you're using the shmir. Are you allowed to have a no from shaloi keder chanasa? So there's actually a shaila if that's called having a no. And if you hold that if you're also a no for something, then you're not going to have a no, then you are allowed to have a no shaloi keder chanasa, because that's not called having a no. Well, then there's a shaila: is could you be yoytza mitzvah if it's not kederach? Could you be yoytza mitzvah of achilas matzah if you're eating a shaloi kederach achila? So there are Rishonim want to see that those two questions are followed as episode. So the Cheshuk Chemer is a very good shaila. It's pouring raining. I said over a story. I think I have to say it over again. But it's pouring raining. It's pouring raining, and your friend needs a ride, and you pull up there and you tell him, "And Shuldik, I'd love to take you into my car, but it's my shvalger's car. I don't want to mess it up. But if you want, I can put you in the trunk. I can put you in the trunk." So the shaila is, if he's also to have a no for me, would he be allowed to sit in my trunk? Because that's shaloi keder chanasa. So the Cheshuk Yechemed clears that shaila. Okay. So I don't know what he passes. He clears that shaila. So I said over yesterday, but I'll say it over again, about this fellow who's standing in the pouring rain. He's getting soaked and drenched, and a Lutzvak pulls up in a brand new, beautiful old Toyota Camry, and he rolls his window down. He says, "Ravid," and he's so excited. Someone's there. He's jumping. He's about to jump into the car to pull the door open to get in. He's freezing in the rain, and the guy goes click. He pushes the lock button, and he can't even open it. He says, "What's the matter with you?" He says, "And Shildik, I would love to give you a ride of a Musfah Shtei Dosa, my Shvager's car, and you're so messy and dirty. It's a shayla. I'm going to be massive my Shvager's car. I'm sorry, I can't take you." And he rolls your window up, and he just abandons the guy. A second later, a big Cadillac Escalade pulls up, and there's a Chassidish, a man in there, and he rolls his window down and says, "Yankel, Kim ran in the car." So the guy says, "I'd love to go into your car, but I'm soaking. I'm going to mess up the whole car." Don't worry about it. It's my sugar's car. So Chaim attended, because he knew his sugar would be happy to give a guy a ride in the rain, even though it would mess up his car. Gewaltig. Sagt der Heilige Gemara weiter.
But I don't understand. To me, it seems intuitive that you get a phenomenon from walking through foresight.
Right, so you do get Hana. The question here is for the purposes of Isser Hana,
Yeah,
Hana that you wouldn't charge for,
yeah.
is that also, does that make the threshold of Isser? So of course Hana. So a huge benefit, I don't have to walk around. But you could technically,
If you're walking through the.
yeah, no, you could technically charge, but most people don't have toll booths in their property.
Oh.
I wish I could put a toll booth in my property, but most people don't have toll booths in their property. So since something, it's definitely a benefit, but it's something that most people don't charge for. So therefore, could be it's not called Isra no. That's why Chaim liked the other pshat better. That is, I don't mean to include such a Isra when I make a Isra no, because it's something that I normally wouldn't charge for. Right? I think that's exactly what you meant, because Lamais I am benefiting.
The after effects of COVID.
Oh. Okay, so let's see the Gemara Vayter.
It used to be closed, you opened it for the living, no?
No, it was never closed.
Right, yeah.
Correct the Gemara. It says Vayter in the Mishnah. Hanoider Michael Mechaveroi Lo Yashilenu Napa the Kiver V'Rechaim. You're not allowed to lend him these types of kalim. However, he's allowed to borrow kalim that have no shaykhs. Correct the Gemara. Vamin Michael Nodar. I don't understand. He only answered a min Michael. This is not eating. I'm not eating anything if I'm using your pot. So the Rav says, "Vamin Michael Nadar the chivin shekain lama yeser." If I'm only answering I'm not of eating by using your food preparation tools, how am I having a no from eating? So I already touched it with the maskana that I didn't say I'm not going to have hana of eating. It means I'm still not at the maskana. We'll get to the maskana soon. Maybe what it means is I'm not going to have any hana of eating from you. But Frank the Gemara, it's such an expression of a nos machalcha doesn't mean any hana of eating. Maybe it means I'm not going to have hana from your food. If I say I'm not going to have enough from any of your food, maybe that means if you chew chitin, I won't even use that to use as a salve. Because I won't have enough from any of your food. Maybe that's what those words mean. Amarava, you're right. What our Mishnah means, that in what case, what did he have to say? To make an isser for me, to even borrow food preparation tools, it's ba'omer hana hamavia l'dei machalcha alai. Any hana that I can have from you that could lead to eating, that should be usher to me. So therefore, food preparation tools lead to eating. Those will be usher, even though they're things that are normally not charged for. And anything that you would normally charge for is something that could lead to eating. And the Ran once again elaborates on this. Amar Rabba, there's a mandamar who holds that the Chahai Gavna Osir Bein Bil Isas Chitin Al Gava Makasai. This lashon is all inclusive, and it even includes the last step of the Gemara, which means if somebody else had chitin and he was chewing it, and then he gave me his chewed chitin, what in the world would I do with that? I would use it as a salve. That's also going to be osir, because that's also included in the Hana Hamavil de Michael life. And of course, it also includes the items listed in our Mishnah. Ben Benapa, Ben Bekava, you wouldn't be allowed to borrow kalim that could possibly be used for food preparation. But the I don't like this Uktaran. It should not include the chewed food. The Bechlal Hana Hamavil de Michael Loy Mashma Nesinas Chitim Luusin Al Gavim Makasa. When someone says any hana that could come to eating, that would not include chewed kernels. Elahaki have a pasuk de bilsa. So now the Ran is telling us the bottom line. The Nedarim Michael, if you said I'm usher to have hana food from you, then any usher ela b'achil b'bad. The only thing that I'm not allowed to do is eat your food. Umutu b'chol davar acher, you'd be allowed to have any type of hana other than eating food from the mudar. Amar hanos machol chalai. If you said the hana of your actual food should be usher to me, well then it's also b'chila, and it's also b'usher lilois chitim al gavim makosei. You're not allowed to have any hana from his food. No matter what you're using it for, you wouldn't be able to have that enough. Abo, lishol mimena napa v'kiver, would be shari, like our Gemara says. But the third item, Omar Hana, Hamavia, L'dei Michael Alai, I'm not allowed to have any no from you that could lead to eating, then it's also Bachila, and it's also Lishol napa v'kiver, you're not allowed to borrow kalim that could be used in food preparation. Miu lilo is chidin, v'litma gabi makosoi, shari that would be mutter, kach nirabein.
And also, if you use it for the 10 pieces of,
Very good, very good. Amar Papa.
Because you're not eating it.
Amar Papa, sak lahavi pears. What about if I want to use your sack? I want to use your sack to load up with pears to carry pears. Is that going to be also? Or chamor lahavi alav pears? Or can I use your chamor to deliver pears to me? Right? Would that also be considered usher? Vafilu tzana balma, or to borrow from you a basket. Hana hamavia l'dei maichelu. That's also called hana hamavia l'dei maichelu. So that's even less direct than kalim in food preparation, but in a way that might be more direct, because when you're doing this, the food is already prepared. Like the Ran speaks out. So let's see the Ran. Sak lo bila pears hana hamavia l'dei maichelu. Don't say lo mikri hana hamavia l'dei maichelu. Maybe food preparation itself, that's what's usher. But just bringing already prepared food, who said that's called hanam avil Michael? Now the Gemara says, what about a different thing? Not transporting food, but I'm using your horse to go to the restaurant, to go to food. How about sus lirkoi v'lo? So that's also helping me have food, but it's not the horse bringing the food. It's the horse bringing me to the food, or v'tabas liroispa, or I'm going to go to be a guest. Now, if I come in like a schnorr, they're going to sit me in the back. If I come looking like a shiny eat, they're going to put me in the front. So I want a fancy ring that they're going to put me in the front. I'll get better food out of it. Now, is that also called a nom avedi Michael? Or mifsel umezik bare, to let me cross through his property. Again, it allows me to get there closer. What would be the halacha? I'm sorry? That's right. My Toshima, Avomashaloi Chaluk, the Talis, Nizamim Vatabois. Hey Chadami, what exactly does it mean in the Mishnah that these things are allowed? If I'm borrowing them, but I'm not using them to be a shiny yid that I should get a better position, better portion. So why in the world should it be usher? Why do I need a Mishnah to tell me that that's mutter? It must be the Mishnah saying a chiddush that I feel the even if you are going to use these to get better food, nevertheless, what does the Mishnah say? So you have a riot, in fact, that these things wouldn't be a problem by a nos machel. You can't bring a riot. Maybe the Mishnah is speaking about totally random things that have nothing to do with helping you benefit eating food. So you asked me a kasha, so why does the Mishnah have to say that I could borrow those things? It's pasha. Maybe it is pasha. Since the Reisha gave examples of things that you're not allowed to borrow or lend, depending on who's usher, Tana Sefer Mashiloi, the Sefer gives examples of things that could be lent, but there's nothing specific or significant about these examples. Beautiful. Zok Tehiligaram. Ulinin Alocha. Boydra Papalay of Shita. We don't have a Psak Alocha on our Papa's Alocha. Hilchach Tinla Chumra, that you wouldn't be allowed to borrow a horse to get to the meal faster, or you wouldn't be able to borrow anything like that. Let's see the Ran on Sus Lirka below, because the Ran makes some interesting distinctions. The Tabas the Roisba or Mifsik Mezo Ba'arimayu. The Mi'amrin, do we say Nehida Krabas Hamachalelov Mikriya Namavil Michael, using a chamor, a sack that helps bring the food to me? That is called a Namavil Michael. Afilochi, nevertheless, Lahakriv Aitzay Lim but Hano that will bring me closer to the food. Like using your property as a shortcut. So you should get there earlier. That's lav hano hamavil de maicheli. Maybe that's not called hano that brings you to food. The shiny osam also b'maichelatzmai. When you're transporting food, you're doing something to the food with the chamor. But if I'm just getting there quickly, the hano that I have is not involving the food at all. The chinami sus lirka lirois to look like you're prominent. Everybody knows the best way to get into a Rebbe quickly when you go to the waiting room is to make sure to wear kaflums and cologne. And then you're guaranteed that the Gabba will push you in early because you look important. They'll give him a good portion. Maybe that's just a grumma. So that was the shaila, and the Gemara doesn't answer the shaila, and therefore the Ran says you go to Chum.
This then that's you told me that Susanna that passed away and the son became Rebbe. The comes and Mathematics or something comes. I not glad for reading it. He came and sat down with the Rebbe. He said, "Your father knows that this is not mine. This is not mine." I said, "Come down here." And we said, "Baby, yeah, I hope that you're gonna follow the trail."
Yep. Zakt Gemara, "V'chol davar she'ein oisin by oichel nefesh." And anything that you would not use in food preparation at all, but mokum shemaskirin kayotzeben, a lawnmower. Do people rent out lawnmowers? Could be. So if it's normal to rent out your lawnmower, then if I say you're not allowed to have any of food for me, you're not allowed to borrow my lawnmower. Why? Because when I'm giving you my lawnmower, I'm giving you, let's say, $15 of value. Because if you went to Stevenson's to rent that lawnmower, it would have costed you $15. So therefore, I'm giving you enough food, even by lending you a lawnmower. Therefore, kayotze ben also. Because these are things no one would, there's no such company that has a rental service for renting shirts. I'm not saying that there isn't. I'm saying the Gemara time there wasn't. I guess nowadays you could, but vice versa in those days, it wasn't something that was normal. Zok the Gemara mechalal the reisha afal pish ein maskirin. You're telling me that in the reisha, those kalim used in food preparation, like the seed and the oven, those will be also, even though there's no value to those that are rental. Montana, it goes back to Rebbe Lezer, it's Vitor. Rebbe Lezer holds that Vitor is Aser, even though it's something that you would normally not charge for. If there's an Isser Ano, it's going to be Aser. Zok to Gemara Vater. Masnisin. Hamudar Ano Mechaber. What happens if your friend may not have enough of you? You told your friend you may not have one iota of Ano from me. Nevertheless, shekel a shikla. Everybody has an obligation to give a machzah shekel every year to the Beis Hamikdash. This person may not allow to have enough of you. You're still allowed to pay the shekel on his behalf. Why isn't that called a benefit? Your mama is saving him to have a shekel. This fellow owes his friend $100,000, and you made him also have enough from you. You're allowed to pay off his choy. You're benefiting him gewaltig. What if you find yourself, he lost a diamond ring, and you found it? You're allowed to give it back to him. He's having enough. So the Gemara is going to explain how this works. But in a place where it's normal to give a reward. If I return something that's lost, it's normal that you give me a reward. So then there is value here. I'm not allowed to take your reward, but I'm also not allowed to give it back to you because then you're going to have enough of it.
Not allowed to do that.
Right. So what do? People hanol the hektish. Let Ano go to hektish. Okay, let's see the round. Zok Taylor around. Mokum shemeskir kayotze ben aser. We did that already. Shekel a shiklay. Hamad lemuder. I'm allowed to pay his shekel even though he's saving. I'm not giving him anything. I'm giving you your own object. I'm not giving you something you didn't have until now. But if the machzer ended up losing money because in the time that he could have made money and worked, instead he diverted his attention to your object and returned it. In that circumstance, the Balaved is mukhif to pay him. So then people don't know the hektish. If he doesn't want, if you accept the money, there's no problem. But if you don't want to accept the money, you can't give it back. You can't say you can keep it. He's not allowed to keep it. Rather, you tend to muda hektish. The muda will have to give it to hektish. If the mother is being moichel money to this person who owes him money, that would be called giving him enough. Okay, so now the question is, why is it that if I pay off your loan, why is that not considered that I'm giving you benefit? Zok to Gemara, you see from here, Alma Avruchi Ari Ba'almahu. When I'm paying off your loan, I'm not benefiting you. You're not getting any money. A third party is getting money. All I'm doing is I'm protecting you from being attacked by your creditor. So I'm just preventing you from being attacked by your creditor, Vishari, and therefore it will be mutter. So let's see the round. This is a big chiddush. We're only referring to the first two cases of the Mishnah where I'm paying off a debt that you would have otherwise owed. So the hachi shari, why is it mutter? You're not really giving him anything. All you're doing is you're protecting him from his creditor. Therefore, you're allowed to pay a shekel as well for him. You're not being mahanim. We learned that even someone who doesn't contribute to the shkolim anyway has a chelik in the kabbanas. So you're not giving him anything that he didn't have before. My amrit. So what possible anoah could you say exists here? I paid up his choy. That's not called anoah because of ruchi arihu v'shari. All I'm doing is I'm preventing some damage from coming his way, but I'm not giving him an additional benefit that would not be also with the Israel.
We saw in the blood that if somebody is Makadosh Isha, right? From now to whatever, then that's called because she has a shiva. So Makadosh b'mil the item Makadosh. So there is some kind of shiva that somebody has when he owes something.
That's if he's using it for kedusha. That's if he gives it for Hashem kedusha. Here he's not giving him anything. He's not giving anything at all. There he gave her money with Hashem kedusha.
I don't charge for my shovel that he would whatever.
Okay, so let's discuss this later. So it's a kasha. It's a kasha. How this compares to that? But I want to focus on the pshat of the Gemara. I want to get through. So we'll discuss that.
4 words, 5 words are
Could you point to me which word specifically? It's a v'ruchei ariu. It's, let's say you own a property and there's a lion that's coming to eat your animals. You have chickens, you have goats, and there's a lion coming. And what you do is you scare away the lion. So that's something where I didn't benefit you anything. I just prevented harm from coming your way. The law is if you have a property with animals and there's a lion that's coming to attack your animals, and I chase away the animals, I have no claim on you. Because all I've done is I've saved you a loss, but I haven't given you anything, and therefore that's not called having a no.
In a protection company, a garden company, it's a value that.
So that's also relevant to the sugya of Ruch Ari. If you save someone's property, could you charge him for it? So that's the shadow. We have to learn that sugya of whether or not you can charge. You're asking, you should be able to charge for it, right? So that's a sugya in and of itself. But we're assuming that you cannot charge for it.
Huh?
We're assuming you cannot charge for it, and there's a Gemara that discusses that. So we could look up the Gemara to get all the specifics on it. Yeah, that's right. So for example, Tana, who is the Tana? Is he allowed to say here? I hear. So look at Tana. Who is the Tana?
All these things that are mitzvahs, right?
We're going to get to it in a second. That's a Shabbat Saveda.
So the same.
But we're not discussing that yet. The Gemara is going to get to Shabbat Saveda. That's right. Rabbi Hoshia said, Zu Divrei, this Tana that said that being Mavrich and Ari is not called having a no, that's going to go according to Hanan. And this is already, remember we had a whole bunch of Mishnais and Ksubas that talked about Hanan and certain things that the Bnei Khan Gedolim agreed with him or didn't agree with him. So this is following the words of Hanan, who said that if you leave your wife and she has no mezainis, and you give the woman mezainis, you give her food, then it's kemeniach ma'osav al karen atzvi. He has no way to recover that money. So even though he fulfilled this man's responsibility and fed this man's wife, nevertheless he cannot go back after the man to collect the money. Rabba says, even if he wanted to hold that Amish is going according to their Rabbanon, where normally he would have to pay it back. And the Iran says specifically, what is Divrei HaKoil? The Afilu Rabbanon, the army shechayev loiva lahach shelozeh the me'achoyev shapar b'shvilai. There's a machlokes about this. The Rabbanon hold that if I pay off your loan, then I do have a right to go collect from you. Hanan holds if I pay off your loan, I have no right to collect from you. But the Rabbanon holds if I pay off your loan, I do have a right to go back and collect from you. So if in fact I have a right to go back and collect from you, why in our Mishnah would it be mutter? I'm clearly having a no from you because I'm paying off your chayiv and now you owe me money and I'm not asking for that money back. So if the Gemara is still gabi mudar no, it's going to be different. You know why? The yoyev, let me see the back inside. The yoyev lay almanas shaloy lefraya. It's because when he originally borrowed the money, the terms of the loan was whenever you have the money, you have to pay it back. There's no due date. So therefore, I'm not benefiting you because I'm saving you from your creditors who are going to come collect, because your creditors could never come collect because you originally borrowed it with terms that they would not be able to collect. So let's see the right quickly. The Yavam Nashlo the Froya Askinon, Klimer the Cheshel Veyu Hisne Imai, when you borrow the money, the terms of the payment was Shaloye Kayach Bechaver Lechayfoi Ela Cheshayirtza Haloiva Yifrenu Idaita. The loiva was told you could pay back whenever you have the money. Hilchach Kipar Le Mader Loisei Choy, if the mother is paying off the choy, the Afagav the Evsher, the Muder Mishum Kesuva Parle, even though it's possible that I'm saving the loiva the money, because even though there was no legal way to force him to pay, but it's pretty embarrassing to owe somebody money and not pay back, even though you cannot force me legally to pay, but I feel like a schnurr. I owed you money and never paid you back. So the might I'm saving the loiva that embarrassment. Even the boy loy parale, since the loiva has the option not to pay, lav midi yoyiv leila mudar. We don't consider that something that you're giving the loiva. The Rana Pasha the Kasha. The Chitema Tenech Parela Chayvai. I understand by Parela Chayvai, it was a chayv that they would never able to collect from him. But El Shaykal Shikloi, Hey Chishari Libid Rabbanan. Right? Don't we know that they took mashkainos? The bezin would force you to pay. So there is someone coming to collect. So how is it that I'm allowed to pay his shekel? You could say the masnisin lidithu mishkachas law. If you hold the according to the Rabbanan, if you hold the Hanan, it's not a problem. Because if I pay up your chayv, you don't have to pay it back. But if you want to shtel out the Rabbanan, you could say speaking kagoin sholach eshikloi, he already sent the shekel. V'nignav and it got stolen by Abad mishanitra truma, and it got lost, and they already took from the truma salishka. The chihagavna potim ilashalein. In such a case, the gizbar does not come after him. Kidetanya ba'azov b'nei yair sheshaklu ashikleim. The nignavu avdu imishanitra truma. If the truma was already taken, nishban legizbarim, all you have to do is swear to the gizbar that they already paid. Therefore, hilchach kishoiko madir ashikloi midi deloy b'chayev mudar kayov. He's giving with the mother pays the shekel on behalf of somebody who would otherwise not have been able to be forced to pay anyway. That's not called that he benefited him. Even though normally if your shekel got lost, people would pay again, but they weren't mandated to pay again. Sorry, it's mutter to do that, because otherwise he wouldn't have been forced.
So this is adapting that's not counted. It's only when there's a way that doesn't shall not could enforce it.
The Eibishter doesn't say you have to. You're potter. People did it out of the generosity. They wanted their money to get there, but there's no chiv anymore.
Here, when this person is supposed to give a shake, right?
If he gave it, he was Yosy the mitzvah, even though it got lost.
5-minute warning.
Right?
Not talking about something got lost. He didn't pay his.
No. That's what the Ran's saying. If you want to learn that our mission is going according to the Rabbanon, you're going to have to say that this case is a case where he's paying after he got lost. Because otherwise, according to the Rabbanon, you would be mechuyev to pay back. And it would be another. That's exactly what the Ran's trying to say. So let's go analyze Chanan. It's not we learned. And this is going back to our Gemara that we learned in Subas. If someone left to go far away, and his wife doesn't have prenasa, and some generous soul came and gave pernasa to the wife. Chanan says, you've lost your money. And nechluku Allah b'nei kaihanim gedolim. The b'nei kaihanim gedolim argued on him. And they said no. When the husband comes home, the generous fellow who supported his wife, Yishva can swear kama hoitzi, how much money he's given her, v'yidol, and then he can demand payment from the husband. Omar Abdoishman Hirkadas Kedavrahim. And Abdoishna paskin like the B'nai Kahanim Gedolim that they can collect. Omar Rabbi Yochanan Zakai. Rabbi Yochanan Zakai said, Yofa Omar Chanan. I don't know if you remember, the Gemara said whenever Rabbi Yochanan Zakai said Yofa Omar Chanan, in all those Mishnayos, we pass like Chanan. This was by the Shlosh of the Yonik Zeres. Right, so these were all the different halachas that they passed him. Some we passed him, some we did. The Yofa Mechanan that he niach moisav al keren atzvi. Rabbi Yochanan Zakai paskins like Rab he paskins like Rav Doisem and Hercules. I'm sorry, he paskins like Hanan. Zoktamar Rava lo Amar Rav Hoshia. Why didn't Rava say Rav Hoshia's pshat? What was Rav Hoshia's pshat? Rav Hoshia's pshat we had on Amar Aleph was Zu Divrei Hanan, right? Rava said that our Mishnah is even going according to Rabbanan. Why did he have to do that? Why didn't he just say it's going like Hanan, and then we wouldn't have needed any Torah, right? Zok to Gemara, you know why Rava didn't want to say like Rav Hoshia? Because Rava wants to say our Mishnah is not only going according to Hanan, our Mishnah is also going according to the Rabbanon. So that's why it was doichik to say that the Mishnah is speaking that the chayv that I'm paying off is a chayv that didn't have a payment deadline. That's a little doichik because most chayvs do have a payment deadline. If we allow someone to pay off chayvs that don't have a deadline, so then people are going to think that if someone's also to have enough from you, you're allowed to pay off their chayvs. And then you'll come to pay off a chayv even if there was a deadline. That already would be a problem, and therefore, Rav Hoshia doesn't want to learn like Rav. You can be Machshir Zaveda. Zok Tehele Gemara, Pligibor Rab Ami Rabasi. They have a machloikis. Chad Amar Lo Shanu Elo V'Shenichsei Machzir Asurin Al Balaveda. That's only if the Machzir Veda may not give Hana to the Balaveda. The Chimahaderle, because when I'm giving the Aveda back, Meidam the Nafshe Kamahaderle. I'm giving him an object that belongs to him. Aval Nichsei Balaveda Asurin Al Machzir. But what happens if I, who found Aveda, I'm not allowed to enough from you who lost Aveda? I'm not allowed to give back. Because if I give you back an Aveda, I'm benefiting. How am I benefiting if I give you back the Aveda? If I give you back something that you lost, why am I benefiting from you? Zok to Gemara, beautiful. The Kamahanile Pruta de Rabbi Yosef. You're saving him the Pruta of Rabbi Yosef. What does Rabbi Yosef say? What happens if you're in the middle of doing a mitzvah, you're saying Krishna, and Chaim Fear comes with his bag? I can say, oh, you took a mitzvah, put them in a mitzvah. I'm in the middle of Krishma. Don't come ask me now for money. So if I'm returning your Aveda and Chaim Fear comes over to me, can I have some money for tzedakah? I can tell him, I'm sorry, I'd love to give you tzedakah, but I'm oisik for mitzvah. I'm in the middle of being busy with giving back his Aveda. Well, it's not so poshut if you're mafsik. We discussed this yesterday by Moshe Rabbeinu with the bris. When you say oisik mitzvah, put them in a mitzvah, is it even if it doesn't mean you're involved, even though you could squeeze in both mitzvahs, right? So those are all even then it's put them in a mitzvah. So man le pruta Yosef. V'chad Amar afilu nichse balaveda surn al maser mahaderle. I might be saving money if someone comes to me for money at that point. We should pruta Yosef lo shchiach. We're not going to aser you to give him back an Aveda because someone might come out with you while you're returning the Aveda, and therefore we wouldn't aser. Because that takes us to the bottom of the daf. We have 1 minute left, so I want to learn. There's some important rounds over here. So let's learn Gzer Shaloi Lefroya Atul Lefroya. Kloimar Di Amrina the Madir Parei Lechayvoi Shalvudar Kishalava Almanah Shaloi Lefroya. If we allow someone to pay off his friend's choy, even though his friend's not allowed to have enough from him, but you're only letting him pay off his choy if it's a choy that he wouldn't have to pay anyway because there's no payment deadline. Equal a mixture, we need to be concerned. People aren't going to make that distinction. If they're allowed to pay back a chayv that does not have a payment deadline, people might mistakenly also pay a chayv that does have a payment deadline, and that's a real problem. Therefore, you must nisan Rabbanon, if the Mishnah is going according to Rabbanon, where you're mechuyev to pay back someone who paid off your loan, leka gavna deshari. There is no case where it would be mutter for somebody to pay back his friend's chayv. Elavade Chanani, therefore, Rav Hoshia holds that our Mishnah must only be consistent with Chanan, umutter b'chol inyan, and therefore, in Chanan, according to Chanan, even if it's a loan that has a deadline, it's still mutter because according to Chanan, you don't have to pay back. Okay, inyan halacha. Let's skip this long run because it's late. We'll just learn Medim Dinafshe Kamadle. Why are you allowed to return an Aveda? Because you're giving back something to somebody that already belongs to him. All you're doing is all you're really doing is you're causing him, you're protecting him from the loss. If you're being master an Aveda, while you're busy with the Aveda, you're partner from giving tzedakah. She'oisik b'mitzvah pater b'nei mitzvah. But tell over Rabbi Yosef, why did Rabbi Yosef get the blame for this scenario? Mishum the pligi Rabbi Yosef perek hakoyin seinodir v'shoyim Aveda. If someone's watching an Aveda, you have a kashem mesacher. Maybe he's like a kashem mesacher. Why? Because while I'm watching your Aveda, I don't have to give tzedakah. Uskrila Rabbi Yosef the chiyuvon the mifter milu meisach pruta ani kashem mesacher hava. I'm a kashem mesacher just because the owner of the object's not paying me. I'm being paid. I'm benefiting. I'm benefiting from the fact that I'm watching your Aveda. Therefore, I should be a kashem mesacher. What is my benefit? My benefit is that I don't have to give tzedakah if an ani approaches me at that moment. What is the chances that while he's busy returning the Veda, right at that moment, a ani will come to him? That's not something we need to worry about. The name of loy mahadamishum de mesanimidi. We won't say that it's called having a no. Such a scenario occurring, that would not be included in the Isra no. So I think the Ran is saying starker, even if it does happen, that's not the hana that I had in mind to aser when I made this hana. Umiyu kiven the efsher the asi umasani minei shemasachu aloi. It's still considered a shemasacher. It's not something that would be also no, but it still would be considered a shemasacher. A shemar aveda is considered a shemasacher. The chai b'gnei aveda. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll be tomorrow.
A lot of times the time that he's taking to give it back